In Christianity, apologetics means defending or explaining the Christian faith. The word apologetics comes from the Greek word apologia, which means defending or justifying your position. So this can work twofold. It can be either explaining your beliefs to non-Christians, where you'd maybe be addressing criticism, you would be answering questions, and really just explaining that no, your faith isn't blind, it's based on this, that, and the other reason, and that they're good reasons. Or it could also be with Christians where you're kind of addressing misconceptions and refining or clarifying what some core beliefs are. There's another component where you're providing additional reasons for belief, which can be really helpful. You know, as a Christian, you might have come to faith for one reason, but then you'll hear about 6 other good reasons why your faith is a great idea. So there's actually a biblical case for apologetics, and that is from, in the Bible, the book 1 Peter. In chapter 3, verse 15, it says, "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have." And that word answer is to defend, to justify. That's that apologia word. So there are 4 key strategies when it comes to apologetics, or maybe approach is a better word. The first approach is classical. This is where you have philosophical and logical arguments for belief that usually follow an if-then sort of flow, if you will. A classic example for this is that everything that exists has a cause. The universe exists, it must have a cause as well. With that cause being God, of course. The second approach would be evidential, and this is where we have different empirical evidence for why someone might be a Christian. This includes things like historical facts, archaeological findings, fulfilled prophecies, and probably the biggest one is the evidence for the resurrection. Non-Christians don't always realize this, but in the same way that we can look at other historical events like World War I or anything you want, really, there's also a significant, if not overwhelming, amount of evidence that the events and people and places, and most significantly the resurrection, can be verified and all come out showing great accuracy. So a third category is presuppositional apologetics, and this is where Christians compare Christianity to other worldviews and argue that Christianity is the only worldview that both consistently and satisfactorily supports or gives grounds for why things are the way they are. And one example of that is morality, right? Christians would say that the reason why humans have such a universal sense of good and bad actions, good and bad behaviors, that we put things into those categories because God has given us a moral law based on his character, whereas the purely materialistic, atheistic worldview would only be able to endorse moral relativism. There really wouldn't be any such thing as good and bad. It would just be what might be good for my individual survival might be bad for yours, and that's too bad. So that's an example of presuppositional apologetics. And then this last category is experiential, and this is where personal experiences with God are used to build faith. So this can include things like personal direct interactions with God. It can also include things like prayers that are answered so specifically that it can't just be coincidence. So I would encourage you to check out the description. I've linked to all of my favorite apologetics books that covers all these different categories. Like for scientific reasons, I really love the book by Hugh Ross, For historical reasons, I really like the book The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. Then for experiential, as well as presuppositional, I think the book Seeking Olive, Finding Jesus is incredible. It kind of checks all these boxes of like, why Christianity, why are religions not all the same, like Christianity and Islam's compared in this particular one, but he also has some really personal experiences that are difficult to explain away. So all of these different things together, of course matter on their own, but when you combine them all, my take is that they give such overwhelming support for the Christian worldview that no matter who you're talking to, whether it be Christians or non-Christians, you'll be able to clearly articulate and justify your faith, and that's what Christian apologetics is. So if you have any more questions about this topic or other topics, maybe you want to dive more into the science, or something else, go ahead and put them in the comments and I will answer them in a future video. And if you subscribe, then you'll be able to see those answers as well as answers to other people's questions about Christianity or Christian apologetics. Thank you so much.